I I just want to think out loud a bit about dive equipment. One thing I really notice more and more is that the best equipment is the modular equipment. Doesn't matter if it's, for instance, if you want some thermal protection. If you go with wetsuits, you can go from a little range, like 3 millimeter are good for some kind of tropical diving, and you probably can go with a 3 millimeter or a 3 millimeter shorty, whatever. But when you get to like subtropical, you might want to have like 5 millimeters if you're being in the Mediterranean, what do you call that sea, around Greece, Spain, and all that. Here in Sweden, at the summertime, you might have a 7 millimeter, kind of like semi-dry. So it's not very modular. It's You have to have several suits if you want to have that range between tropic to more of this cold Swedish temperate temperatures. If you have a dry suit, however, you can have a wider range. Even if dry suits, of course, being more made for cold waters, and wetsuits are more for warmer than colder. You don't go diving in Swedish winter with wetsuits. That probably gonna lead to very cold dives. Just as if you have a dry suit in a tropical destination, you're probably gonna sweat so much before you get into the water. So you probably go with a wetsuit instead. But I still think that the dry suit has a way bigger range. You can have a J2 undergarment, which isn't much thicker than this. Of course, it's not going to be like cotton. Of course, it's going to be something that will keep moisture away and keep you dry. And if you have like a zero firm, that would be more like a sweater, like this kind of thickness to it. A little bit more thermal protection, but still not very warm. You can have that probably in. I heard, for instance, some people say that zero farm would be good if you be off season in the Red Sea when it's cold, windy, and all that. And if you do repetitive diving and you stand there with a wetsuit that's cold and it's windy, you be there freezing. But with a dry suit, you're dry, and then the zero farm is good. So I think that's the modular kind of solution, that you can have the J2 zero firm, the Halo 3D, or Santi BZ 400, or whatever the name is. So it can be anything from tropical to ice diving. So sure, it's very much more expensive. If you buy a 3 millimeter, 5 millimeter, and 7 millimeter wetsuit, it would probably end up to be the kind of the same price as a trilaminate dry suit. Then you don't even get anything for the thermal protection when it comes to the dry suit. You just get the shell. So it's more expensive, of course, and you have to buy all the parts, like the J2 for the tropical or whatever, or the Xeroform for subtropical, or whatever you would use for that temperature, and you use the Halo in pretty much all year around when it comes to Sweden. So all those, that costs pretty much like a new dry suit in itself, just with the different garments. But the thing is that eventually you will end up there anyway. You might start diving and feel like, oh, I'm not sure. I'll borrow it or hire it. I'm not gonna buy anything. Then after a while, okay, it's getting expensive, and I like doing this. Okay, so I buy something cheap. Then okay, I'm doing this so much often, and this is getting like torn or worn out. Then you buy something good, and then when you're probably gonna end up with something that is modular. For instance, a BCD jacket style is way cheaper, but you have to buy a new one if you want to do something like twin set diving. And I'm not sure that the D-rings are at the proper placement for having, for instance, a stage cylinder. But if you have a backplate and a wing designed BCD, You can go from a single cylinder to a twin set, and you can have a stage cylinder on it, and you can go from cave diving, hypoxic trimix diving, to open water diving with the same backplate, with the same harness, and you only need two D rings on each chest or breast on this right and left side, and on the hip, and you can do pretty much anything with it. It's very modular, and you can attach the argon bottle when you use helium in your back gas on any is like standardized on all backplates, so you can have that. And that makes that it's more expensive to buy in the beginning, but you get so much more possibilities. First off, sure, you got this small, medium, large that cover most bodies when it comes to jacket style, BCD. But when it comes to the harness of a wing and backplate kind of design, you measure it after your own body. You can cut off. They always give you a big or over excessive long webbing, so you can cut off very much of it. So usually if you're being very very big, it doesn't matter, or very very small, it doesn't matter. And the backplate, I never seen different sizes of it, so that would be one size fit them all. But the harness, you can really make it just perfect for you. You should be able to feel the backplate with your fingers, and you should just be able to like do this and hit your D rings, so you always know exactly where they are. You just do this and you know it should be here. So with a ball snap, you just could do it in the blinds. You should be training yourself for that. So that's a even better fit than the small, medium, large. That's the thing with like a modular thing. That the sizes you can make perfect. You can go with the twin set with a stage bottle. You can do a twin set dive with it. Sure, you need two different bladders if you do single and double diving. That you want to have two or one cylinder, you have to change that one because they need a different lift. But the whole idea of it being modular is very important. So, and the same, I think that if you go for a regular kind of uh, thermal protection like a BZ400, a fourth element Halo, or a Weasel Extreme, that's good. But the thing is that you want a system. Like for instance, if you buy a Santi 24 ampere hour battery or Ammonite 24 ampere hour battery, then you can get Santi heating gloves. You can get Santi thermal heated vest. You can get the BZ400X or whatever the name is, and you get like everything built in, and you have like wiring all over your suit, and get electric heat. That really makes all the difference in the world, because if you get warm hand and get warm body and everything, it's not just comfort at some point. If you're doing deco dive and stuff, you want to have warmth, because that can actually make difference on your deco, or on your if you have a good warm body, but blood flow goes good, or if you're freezing cold, your decompression will be affected by that. You can easier get the bends. So it's not just because I want to be warm because it's comfortable, but at some point you actually get some benefits that is safer with that, and you don't get hypothermia if you have more warmth. Of course, that's also a problem, and I think you get more affected by oxygen toxicity, and I think also the nitrogen narcosis get affected by if you're being warm. So I think it's worth putting down for more of a modular system. So with a big battery, you can have a suit or a vest, and gloves. You can get so much more. So I think that if you really want to make the most, like, the less limits and more availability to you, go with modular systems, and try to always see like what can give you the biggest range, because of a BCD is so much more cheaper and easy, so that's what you get usually. But is that what you're supposed to get? Of course, if you haven't done before, that would be a very good start. I don't say that I would have said to someone totally new to buy the most expensive things, but if you know you're into it already and you know you're gonna be balls deep, then get like a backplate and a wing design instead of the BCD jacket style. And then you can go with, for instance, if you're going to vacation, you can just go with a single bladder. If you go at home and you want to do deeper, longer dives, you can get a twin set on it, or you can add a stage bubble on it. So that's good. Or if you, for instance, think you're going to dive in many different temperatures, then a dry suit might actually be a good choice, because you can have different thin or thicknesses on the undergarment you have under it. It's no foam protection in itself in a dry suit as it is in a wetsuit. So I think that going, for instance, a good kind of like electrical heating system, if you want to get really warm and get a good foam protection, instead of just getting layers J2 Zero Farm and the Arctic or the Elements, you can have many layers, but I think that they can just take you so far, but the electric warmth make more of a difference, I think. So I think that it's worth going for more, you know, technical solutions that tech divers usually use. You don't see tech divers usually going with, for instance, a BCD jacket style. They usually have either side mount harness for side mount diving, or a backplate system for their twin set, or if they go with a single cylinder. Uh, Same with heating system. That when you see really experienced or very extreme divers, they usually have electrical heating as well. And usually tech divers probably prefer dry suit, because you get warm, but also that you get a redundant source of, you can just add air to it, and you get, if you kind of damage your bladder, whether it's a side mount or if it's a twin set or whatever, and you can't fill out with air, just, you know, busted open and stuff, you can use your dry suit to inflate with air, and you get lift from that. So I think it's a redundant bladder, not just a form protection. Sure, it's not necessarily meant for that, but I know that some people use just the dry suit for their buoyancy. Some use always just the bladder for the buoyancy, and dry suit just to keep, not get any, what do you call it, when the compromising gets squeeze. You just have it for comfort, like a little bit in there, just a little. You don't use that as a float device, but some people do, some don't. So I think it's up to you. I usually think that the more air you get in your suit, the more you get into your boots, and that could mess up things a little bit. So I generally think that I use the BCD for that specific purpose. Um, I think that was what was on top of my mind I wanted to speak up on.